The world went silent. 43-year-old Reese Garrett pressed her cheek against the stock of the Barrett M107. Through the scope 2,400 yards downrange, a steel target shimmered in the Virginia heat. At that distance, it looked smaller than her thumbnail held at arm's length. Wind flags along the range told conflicting stories, gusting east, then southeast, then back again. 12 miles per hour, maybe 15. The kind of conditions that made even experienced shooters pack up and go home. Temperature had dropped 3 degrees in the last 10 minutes as storm clouds gathered on the horizon. That changed air density, changed everything. Her finger rested beside the trigger. Not on it, not yet. 30 Navy SEALs stood behind her in absolute silence, some with their own spotting scopes, others with phone cameras recording, all of them waiting to see if the impossible was about to happen, or if this unknown woman was about to embarrass herself in front of the most elite shooting community in America. Cole Hawthorne stood closest, 46 years old, built like a man carved from granite and bad decisions, the current record holder at 2380 yards, a shot he'd made in Kandahar in 2014 that had killed a Taliban commander and entered SEAL legend. He'd been certain she would fail. Right up until her first 2 shots, 1,000 yards, dead center, twice, 1,500 yards, perfect again. Now this. The shot that would either break his decade-long record or prove those earlier hits were luck. Reese watched the flags, timing the gusts, looking for the pattern. Everything her father had taught her condensed into this moment. Every hour on the range, every lesson about patience, every reminder that shooting was meditation disguised as violence. The wind flags relaxed, not still, never still, but steady enough. She moved her finger onto the trigger, started her exhale, found the space between heartbeats where the body went perfectly still, and squeezed. The Barrett roared, 50 caliber fury compressed into a fraction of a second. The suppressor tamed the blast, but nothing could hide the concussive force that rippled across the range like a shockwave. Reese rode the recoil, returned to the scope. The bullet would be in flight for nearly 4 seconds. 4 seconds of wondering if she'd read the wind correctly, if her calculations were right. If 5 years away from competition, shooting had dulled her edge past recovery. 4 seconds that felt like drowning. Then the sound reached them. A clear, unmistakable clang of metal striking metal. The tone that meant center mass. The sound that meant everything. The range exploded into chaos. SEALs shouting, someone threw their hat in the air, phone cameras swiveling to catch her face. Cole Hawthorne stood frozen, his expression cycling through disbelief, shock, and something that might have been respect. He walked over slowly, extended his hand. "Who the hell are you?" Reese stood, 5'5" in boots, auburn hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing her father's old field jacket that still smelled like gun oil and pipe tobacco. She shook his hand. "Reese Garrett, my father was Colonel Declan Garrett. They called him Phantom." The color drained from Cole's face like someone had opened a valve. "You're Phantom's kid. I'm Phantom's daughter." 48 hours earlier, Reese's biggest problem had been making rent. The Anchor Bar sat 3 blocks from the Naval Special Warfare compound in Virginia Beach, the kind of place where the floor was sticky, the beer was cheap, and nobody asked questions they didn't want answered. Reese had been working there Friday nights for 6 months. Her third job on top of teaching American history at Richmond High School and weekend tutoring sessions for kids whose parents could afford $20 an hour. The math was brutal. 3 jobs barely covered a 2-bedroom rental and her daughter Lily's expenses. College savings, retirement. Those were luxuries for people who didn't live paycheck to paycheck. She wiped down the same section of bar for the 3rd time. 11:15 on a Friday night. Her shift had started at 4. Her feet ached. Her back ached. 43 felt like 63 after 9 hours of standing. The crowd was thick with SEALs, fresh off deployment, still carrying the tension of wherever they'd been, drinking like men trying to forget things that soap and water couldn't wash away. Cole Hawthorne held court at the corner table. She'd seen him before. Hard to miss. 6'2", broad-shouldered, with salt and pepper hair, and the kind of scars that came from doing things most people only saw in movies. His voice carried across the room with the easy confidence of someone who'd earned every syllable. 2380 yards, he was saying. Kandahar, summer of 14, temperature was 115, wind gusting to 20. I had to account for heat, shimmer, mirage, the whole 9 yards. He paused, took a drink, let the moment build. Headshot on a Taliban commander who thought he was safe behind a ridgeline. 1 shot, still unbeaten in SEAL history. His table erupted in approval. Glasses raised. Someone called him Reaper. Someone else said something about God-tier shooting. Reese felt the words bubble up before she could stop them. My father shot farther. The table went quiet. Then every head turned. Cole's eyes found her, narrowed slightly. Say again, sweetheart. The endearment landed like a slap. Deliberate. Designed to put her in her place. Reese set down her rag. Every instinct screamed to back down. Apologize. Go back to being invisible. A single mom with 3 jobs who couldn't afford to piss off paying customers. But something else rose up. Something that sounded like her father's voice from 15 years ago. Don't ever let them make you small, Reese. Not for anyone. She spoke louder, clearer. My father, 25-20 yards, Afghanistan, Operation Anaconda, March 2002. The entire bar went silent. 30-some veterans and operators staring at the bartender with tired eyes and a ponytail. The woman who smelled like beer and cleaning solution, and who definitely didn't look like someone who knew the first thing about precision shooting. Cole stood, walked to the bar, leaned against it with deliberate slowness. Little lady, do you even know what 2,500 yards looks like? That's over a mile. That's farther than most people can see clearly without magnification. I know exactly what it looks like. And who was this father, Mr. 2520? Colonel Declan Garrett, Rangers, then Special Forces, call sign Phantom. The reaction was immediate. One of the older SEALs, a man in his 50s with gray hair and a face like weathered leather, let out a low whistle. Phantom Garrett. Jesus, I thought that was a ghost story. He was real, Reese said. And everything they say about him is true. Cole studied her face, looking for tells, looking for the lie. His expression shifted when he didn't find one. Phantom Garrett was your old man, yes. And he taught you to shoot from age 12 until he died 5 years ago. Cole pulled back slightly, reassessing, recalculating. Prove it. He gestured around the bar. Tomorrow morning, 0800, Virginia Beach Long Range Precision Complex. You make one clean shot at 1,000 yards in front of witnesses, and I'll apologize and buy you the nicest dinner in Virginia Beach. He paused, smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. But if you can actually break my record at 2,400 yards or better, I'll give you $50,000 cash and buy this whole bar. Make you a business owner. The offer hung in the air. $50,000, more than Reese made in a year from all 3 jobs combined. Enough to fix the transmission in her car. Enough to buy Lily's textbooks for college without taking out loans. Enough to breathe for the first time in years. But it also meant shooting in front of professionals who would know immediately if she was full of it. Shooting after 5 years of deliberately staying away from ranges. 5 years of trying to forget Afghanistan and friendly fire and the things that still woke her up at 3 a.m. with her heart pounding. Cole extended his hand across the bar. What do you say, Reese thought about the metal box in her storage unit, the one she'd been too scared to open since her father's funeral. The letter inside that started with, when you're ready. Maybe she was ready. Deal. His handshake was firm, calloused, the grip of someone who'd spent decades doing hard things. 0800, don't be late. The drive to West Virginia took 4 hours. Reese left Virginia Beach just after midnight, her Honda Civic coughing and rattling over back roads that wound into the Blue Ridge Mountains. The cabin sat in a hollow surrounded by oak and pine, isolated, accessible only by a gravel road that turned to soup when it rained. She hadn't been back since the funeral. 5 years of avoidance. 5 years of pretending that not thinking about something made it go away. 5 years of being wrong about almost everything. Her headlights caught the structure at 2 in the morning. Small, single story, dark windows like closed eyes. The workshop beside it leaned slightly to one side, door hanging open, creaking in the wind. Reese killed the engine, sat in silence. Mountain sounds filled the void. Crickets, an owl somewhere distant, wind moving through branches with a sound like breathing. She forced herself out of the car. The front door key was under the 3rd stone on the left side of the porch. Exactly where it had always been. The lock resisted, then yielded with a click that sounded like surrender. Inside smell hit first. Dust, old wood, the ghost of pipe tobacco. Her father used to smoke on winter evenings while reading Jack London, telling her stories about mountains and survival and what it meant to be strong when everything tried to make you weak. Everything was exactly as she'd left it. Furniture under sheets, kitchen frozen in time, a coffee cup in the sink from the morning he'd died, his reading chair by the window, books still open on the side table. Call of the Wild. He'd been reading it the week his heart supposedly gave out. Reese moved through darkness by memory, through the kitchen where he'd taught her to clean rifles, past the bedroom that had been hers from 19 to 24 when her world collapsed and he'd rebuilt it piece by piece, down the stairs, Alabama to the basement. Declan had built a 100-foot shooting range down here, reinforced concrete walls, professional ventilation, target system at one end, shooting bench and gun safe at the other, the safe open to her father's birthday combined with hers. 3/12/68. The rifles were still there, pristine, oiled, maintained in abandonment, like he'd known someone would return eventually. M40A5, custom Remington 700 with a stock he'd carved from walnut, Chaytacum 200 intervention, and beside them dozens of spiral-bound notebooks filled with his handwriting. Wind calculations, elevation tables, ballistic coefficients, 50 years of learning compressed into paper. A loose page fell out when she opened one. Her name at the top, crossed out, started again, Reese. If you're reading this, you finally came back. Good. That means you're ready. Remember what I taught you. Shooting isn't about the gun, it's about understanding invisible forces. Wind, gravity, time, distance. The space between intention and result. You're better than I ever was. Don't let anyone tell you different. Especially yourself. The box is under the workbench. Third floorboard from the left wall. You'll know what to do. Love always. Reese's hands shook as she read it, then read it again. She hadn't cried at his funeral, hadn't cried when the medical examiner said cardiac arrest was common in men his age, hadn't cried when she sold his truck and closed his accounts and pretended everything was normal. She cried now, alone in a basement at 2 in the morning. She cried for the man who'd raised her after her mother left, who taught her to shoot and think and refused to be diminished, for the years she'd wasted being scared. When the tears stopped, she stood, walked to the workbench. Third floorboard from the left lifted easily. Underneath was a metal box wrapped in oilcloth. Military grade, waterproof, locked. She didn't open it, not yet. First, she had to prove she deserved to. But before tomorrow, she needed to know if 5 years away had destroyed what her father built. Reese loaded the Remington 700, set up a target at 50 yards. Should have been simple. First shot 4 inches left, second shot 3 inches high. Rust. 5 years of rust and deliberate forgetting. She forced herself to slow down. Remember the fundamentals. Breathing, trigger control, follow through. By the 20th round, she was grouping within 2 inches. By the 50th round, her groups were tight enough. But 50 yards wasn't 1,500, wasn't 2,400. Tomorrow she'd find out if muscle memory was enough, or if she'd just made a promise she couldn't keep. The Virginia Beach Long Range Precision Complex opened at 0700. Reese arrived at 0730 wearing jeans and her father's field jacket. The jacket still carried his smell. Gun oil, pine, menthol rub for joints that remembered too many parachute jumps. The range sprawled across 300 acres. Multiple buildings, berms. Target stands from 100 yards to 3,000. Where SEALs and Marines and FBI snipers came to push boundaries, Cole's truck was already there. So were 6 others. Word had spread. The bartender who claimed Phantom Garrett was her father. This was entertainment, a story they'd tell for years, the day someone got humbled by reality. Reese walked toward the main building, her stomach trying to escape through her throat. Every step a reminder of how insane this was. She was a high school history teacher, hadn't competed in 5 years, was about to try outshoot a Navy SEAL in front of the most elite shooting community in America. Cole waited by the entrance with 3 other men. All of them had the look. Military bearing impossible to hide even in civilian clothes. Scars. The stillness of people who'd learned to wait and watch and act without wasted motion. Didn't think you'd show. His tone had changed from last night. Less mocking, more curious. I don't say things I don't mean. We'll see. Range is set up. Target at 1,000 yards to start. Hit that, we'll talk about going farther. He led her through the building. More people had gathered. 20, 30, SEALs, Marines, veterans who traded uniforms for civilian life but kept the bearing. One old man sat apart from the others. Late 60s or early 70s. Weathered face. Eyes that didn't blink. The kind of stillness that came from places where movement meant death. The target stood at the far end. Steel plate, 18 inches across. At 1,000 yards, it looked like a mine held at arm's length. Cole gestured to the shooting bench. An M40A6 lay there. Night Force AT, ACR scope, bipod, suppressor, professional equipment, government money. Weather's decent, 68 degrees. Wind easterly at 7 to 9 miles per hour. Humidity at 65%. He pulled out a ballistic calculator, started entering numbers. Ever shoot past 500 yards? A few times. This isn't backyard plinking. At 1,000 yards, the bullet drops 30 feet. Wind can push it 6 feet left or right. You have to account for Earth's rotation, air density, temperature, everything. He was trying to intimidate her, or maybe help, hard to tell. Here, this'll give you the corrections. Reese didn't take the calculator. Instead, she knelt behind the rifle, pressed her cheek to the stock, found the target through the scope. The image swam. She adjusted focus until it sharpened. Behind the target, grass rippled in waves. To the left, a flag snapped and relaxed with each gust. She closed her eyes. Her father's voice came back clear, as if he were standing behind her. Feel it first, the wind on your skin, the temperature, your breath. The rifle is just a tool. You're the guidance system. You're what makes the difference. She opened her eyes, watched the grass. The wind was consistent, right to left, 7 miles per hour, maybe 8. She timed the gusts and lulls, found the pattern. Everything had a pattern if you watched long enough. 1,000 yards, 8-mile-per-hour crosswind, 90-degree angle to her position. She calculated in her head the way Declan had taught her. No computer, no app, just physics and observation. Bullet weight probably 175 grains based on the rifle. Velocity around 2,600 feet per second. Time of flight roughly 1.4 seconds. In that time, the wind would push the bullet about 7 inches. At this distance, that translated to roughly 2 minutes of angle. Elevation was simpler. She needed about 28 minutes. The scope adjusted in quarter-minute clicks, 112 clicks up. She made the adjustments with deliberate precision. Each click audible, each one a commitment. Cole watched. You know what you're doing. My father taught me, not with computers, with math and patience and the belief that understanding how things work gives you power over them. She settled into position, rifle snug against her shoulder, grip firm but relaxed, breathing steady, watched the grass, waited for the pattern to repeat. Wind gusted, relaxed, gusted, relaxed. On the next relaxation, she stopped her breath mid-exhale, found the natural pause between heartbeats. Squeezed, the rifle cracked, suppressor muting it to a sharp bark, recoil pushing into her shoulder. She wrote it, returned to the scope. 1.4 seconds felt infinite. Time enough to doubt everything. Time enough to remember Afghanistan. Time enough to wonder if this whole thing was a mistake. Then the clang echoed across the range. The crowd erupted. Cole stared through his spotting scope. Dead center, maybe 2 inches high. That's within minute of angle at 1,000 yards. He lowered the scope, looked at her differently now. Not a bartender, a shooter. Do it again. She did. Same process. Same calculations running like equations she'd internalized. Same trust in physics and training. Clang. Jesus, someone muttered. Cole's expression had gone from skeptical to calculating. 1,500 yards. Well, they moved to a different position. New target. The steel plate looked like a pinhead now, a speck. Almost abstract. Wind had picked up to 12 miles per hour. Temperature dropping as clouds moved in. Air density changing. Everything shifting. Reese ran the numbers. 1,500 yards. Longer flight time. More wind drift. More variables stacking. The Earth's rotation became significant. Coriolis effect would push the bullet about 3 inches right at this latitude shooting east. She adjusted. Waited for the wind pattern. Shot. 3 seconds of flight. Long enough to second-guess every assumption. Clang. The old man who'd been sitting apart stood up, walked toward them with the careful gait of someone whose knees remembered too many hard landings. 70-something. Face like leather left in the sun. Lines that told stories of deserts and mountains and places where maps ended. He stopped next to Cole, looked at Reese with intensity that made her skin prickle. She's right, Cole. She won't miss. Cole turned. Hawk, what the hell are you doing here? The old man didn't answer, kept his eyes on Reese. Your father sent me, technically 5 years ago. I've been waiting for you to be ready, Reese Garrett. The range went quiet again, different from before. Not anticipation, revelation. Reese felt reality shift slightly. You knew my father. Sergeant Major Silas Brennan, served with Declan for 20 years. Gulf War, Somalia. 3 tours Afghanistan. Places without names. Things that'll never be in history books. He smiled, but it was sad around the edges. He told me about you, showed pictures, said if anything happened to him, I should watch over you. Make sure you found your way back. Back to what? To this, to who you really are. Silas gestured at the rifle, the range, the shot she'd just made. You're Phantom Garrett's daughter. This is in your blood. He paused, choosing words carefully. But more than that, he looked around at the crowd, at the phones recording, at evidence spreading across social media. Your father didn't die of a heart attack, Reese. The words fell like stones into deep water. He was murdered. And now that you just went viral, he gestured at the recording phones. They'll come for you too. The world tilted. Murdered. Not cardiac arrest. Not natural causes. Not the peaceful end they described. Murdered. Cole's hand was on her elbow suddenly. Let's get you out of here. But Reese shook her head, pulled away. Not yet. She looked at the range, at the target at 2,400 yards that Cole had just had them set up. I came here to break a record. I'm going to break it. Cole started to protest. Silas held up a hand. Let her shoot. 2,400 yards. The distance that had stood unbeaten for a decade. The shot that would either make history or confirm she'd gotten lucky twice. Cole demonstrated first, showed her the setup, explained the challenges. Temperatures dropping, winds shifting every 30 seconds. You'll be shooting at a target 1.5 miles away. The bullet will be in the air for almost 4 seconds. Anything can happen in 4 seconds. He shot first. 3 attempts, 8 inches left, 6 inches right, 4 inches high. Close. Impressive, but not perfect. The wind was playing games, gusting and dropping and swirling in patterns the calculator couldn't quite predict. Reese didn't rush for the calculator. Instead, she watched, observed, timed. 5 minutes of watching grass and flags and dust devils forming and dissipating. 5 minutes of finding the rhythm. Every 2 minutes, the wind gusted hard, 15 miles per hour, then died down, dropped to 8 or 9, held there for maybe 30 seconds. That was her window. She calculated one last time. 2,400 yards, 4-second flight time. At 8 miles per hour, roughly 12 feet of wind drift. Over 100 feet of drop. Coriolis effect. Air density still changing as the storm approached. All of it approximate, all of it based on feel and experience, and 15 years of training with a man who'd made these shots when lives depended on precision. She waited, watching the pattern. 1 minute, gust hits, flag snapping horizontal. 30 seconds, wind dying. 20 seconds until the next gust. She settled into the rifle, slowed her breathing, found the target, a steel blur that might as well have been on the moon. 15 seconds, her finger found the trigger. 10 seconds, wind dying, flag relaxing, grass settling. 5 seconds, she pressed her cheek tighter to the stock, felt the rifle become part of her body. Exhale, half breath, natural pause, the space between heartbeats. Squeeze. The Barrett roared with enough force to rattle teeth. The suppressor directed blast forward, but the shockwaves still rolled across the range like thunder. 4 seconds. Nobody breathed. 30 men frozen, watching a target 1.5 miles away. 4 seconds that felt like drowning, like falling, like every fear and doubt compressed into the space of a heartbeat. Then the sound reached them. Clear, unmistakable. The clang of metal meeting metal. The crowd exploded into chaos even before the spotter confirmed it. Dead center perfect hit 2,400 yards. Cole stood motionless, his face cycling through emotions too fast to track. He walked over slowly, extended his hand. Phantom would be proud. They shook. Who taught you to do that? Really, no bullshit. My father, Colonel Declan Garrett, Rangers, Special Forces. 3 tours Afghanistan. He taught me that shooting isn't about equipment, it's about patience. Observation. Respecting forces you can't see, but can learn to predict. Behind them, the older SEAL who'd whistled earlier stepped forward. Phantom Garrett. That man was a living legend. They say he made a 25-20-yard shot during Anaconda. Headshot on an Al-Qaeda commander from a position nobody thought was viable. No computer, no spotter, just him and a rifle and 20 years of knowing how to read God's breath. Reese felt her throat tighten. He never told me about that. Everything he did was classified. The missions that mattered, the ones that changed things, those stay buried. But those of us who knew, we knew we'd witnessed greatness. Silas appeared at her elbow. We need to talk. Somewhere private. Somewhere they can't hear. They who, he looked around the range, at the crowd, at the phones, at evidence spreading that Phantom Garrett's daughter had just announced herself to the world. The people who killed your father. The people who've been waiting 5 years for you to surface. You just lit up like a flare, and now they know exactly where you are. The old Ford Ranger looked like it had survived multiple wars and maybe a few natural disasters. Rust spreading across the wheel wells. Primer gray passenger door that didn't match the faded blue body. But when Silas turned the key, the engine purred. Function over aesthetics, survival over appearance. Reese climbed into the back seat. Cole took the front. Neither spoke as Silas pulled out of the parking lot and headed west. They drove for 40 minutes through rural Virginia, small towns that were just a gas station and a church, farmland where tobacco grew in defiant rows, into hill country where trees pressed close and houses sat far back from the road. Silas finally turned onto a dirt driveway that wound through forest for another 10 minutes before revealing a house. Small, single story. Vinyl siding that had seen better decades. Isolated enough that screaming wouldn't carry and hiding wouldn't fail. He killed the engine, sat with his hands on the wheel. Before we go inside, I need to know you're both committed. His voice carried gravel and broken glass. Once you know, you can't unknow. Your lives change. You become targets. You'll have to decide what you're willing to sacrifice for truth that's been buried 22 years. Cole spoke first, voice steady. My stepbrother died in 2003. They told us IED, blown up during patrol. Nobody recovered, no investigation, just a flag and a form letter and an officer who couldn't answer questions. He paused, muscle jumping in his jaw. 20 years trying to find out what really happened. So yeah, I'm committed. All in, whatever it takes. Silas turned to Reese. And you've been running 5 years. You could keep running. Take Cole's 50,000, move somewhere new, start over. Your father would understand. He'd want you safe more than involved. Reese thought about Lily, 16, honor student, dreams of becoming a veterinarian. What would this do to her if Reese disappeared? But she also thought about Declan, about the letter, about 5 years of living half a life because she'd been too scared to face truth. I'm in. The house was exactly what you'd expect from 40 years military. Sparse, functional, nothing wasted. Silas made coffee strong enough to wake the dead, poured 3 mugs. No cream, no sugar, no apology. Then he sat, pulled a folder from a locked cabinet, set it on the table like a man handling explosives. Operation Anaconda, March 2002. Photos spilled out, young men in desert camouflage, mountains behind them, the kind of terrain that ate soldiers. 6-man team, your father led, Declan Garrett, Phantom, best sniper I ever served with. He pointed to faces. Me, Silas Brennan, communications and demo. Another photo. Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb, medic, steady hands, kept us alive through 3 firefights that should have killed us. Another. Corporal Travis York, heavy weapons, wife and 2 kids, little girl named Emma, boy named Jack, showed me pictures every day. Another. Specialist Ryan Cross, intel and languages. Spoke Pashto like a native. Could blend anywhere. Saved us more times than I can count. The last photo made Cole lean forward. His hand trembled slightly. A young man. Early 20s, bright smile, same eyes as Cole. Danny, that's my brother. Daniel Hawthorne, your stepbrother, communications specialist. 22 years old. Wanted to be a teacher when he got out. Silas's expression went blank. Professional, report mode. Mission was simple. Locate and eliminate Taliban commander Khalid Ahmadi, high-value target, responsible for 12 American deaths. Intel said he was in a compound in Shawkat Valley. He pulled out a map, marked with grids and elevation lines. We inserted here, hiked 12 kilometers through hell, set up observation here, had eyes on the compound 3 days. You found him. We found him in something else. Different photo, long lens, grainy, but clear enough. 3 men, not Afghans, Americans, civilian clothes, expensive gear, standing by a truck with covered bed. Contractors, private military company called Vanguard Solutions. We watched them 3 days, documented everything. More photos spread across the table. Sequence shots, men loading crates, unloading. Meeting with Afghans in traditional dress. Those crates contained weapons, Chinese AK-47s, RPGs, ammunition, enough to equip a small army. We watched them sell to the same Taliban fighters killing American soldiers 20 kilometers away. Cole's hands curled into fists. Selling to the enemy while we died. Not just selling, buying too. More photos, burlap sacks being loaded, men accepting American cash, opium, massive quantities. They were buying from warlords, shipping through Pakistani contacts, using profits to buy more weapons, creating a cycle, a machine. He leaned back, rubbed his face. The longer the war continued, the more opium they bought, more weapons they sold, more money they made. $847 million in fraudulent contracts between 2002 and 2008. The number hung in the air like poison. Vanguard had Department of Defense contracts, security, logistics, consulting, billing American taxpayers while simultaneously funding the enemy, making sure the war never ended because ending meant their profits stopped. Reese felt sick. My father found proof. We all did. Daniel cloned one of their laptops. Kid was genius with technology. Got everything, names, numbers, transaction records, wire transfers to offshore accounts, photos with Vanguard logos visible, email between executives and OD officials discussing contract extensions. His voice turned bitter. Proof that American contractors prolonged a war that killed American soldiers. For profit they'd never spent. What happened when you reported it? We didn't, not through normal channels. Your father was too smart, knew how deep this went, knew Vanguard had people everywhere. Pentagon, State Department, probably CIA. He took a long drink, hands shaking slightly. Declan smuggled the hard drive out, mailed it to a dead drop, old contact who could hold it. Then we filed official report, said we eliminated Ahmadi, mission successful, nothing unusual, back to business as usual. And then Silas pulled out another document, names with dates, dates of death, causes. 2 weeks later, Daniel Hawthorne died in what they called vehicle accident, Humvee rollover, body burned beyond recognition, military funeral with full honors. Cole's voice strangled. Except Danny wasn't in any vehicle that day. He was on base, nowhere near where they said it happened. But the official report said vehicle accident. Official reports become truth. You're telling me they murdered him, and you just let them? Silas's voice rose to match Cole's anger. We had no proof, no way to prove anything without revealing what we knew, and the moment we did that, we'd all be dead. Don't you understand? These weren't criminals. These were people with billions and connections everywhere. People who could make anyone disappear. Silence fell like a hammer. Who else? Silas pointed to the list. Marcus Webb, training accident 2004. Shot during live fire by unknown friendly fire. Investigation concluded tragic mistake. Case closed. Travis York, suicide 2005, found hanging in his barracks. His voice cracked. Travis was the happiest man I knew. Wife and 2 kids he adored. Planning to retire and teach. No note, no warning, but official cause was suicide. Ryan Cross, vehicle rollover 2007, single car accident, straight road, broad daylight, no skid marks, just drove off the road and died. Bad luck. He looked up, eyes wet. By 2007, just me and your father left. 2 out of 6, the others dead within 5 years, all in ways that looked like accidents. But the odds were too long, the pattern too clear. They were being eliminated, systematically, professionally, by people who knew how. Reese's voice came out as a whisper. What did you and my father do? Made a pact, hide the evidence, bury it deep, wait for the right moment, stay alive, stay quiet, let them think we'd forgotten, play dead until we could figure out how to expose this without dying. For how long? 17 years. We stayed quiet 17 years. Your father retired, bought his cabin, lived like a hermit, taught you. Never talked about Afghanistan or what we found or the brothers we lost. Silas walked to the window, stared out. I did the same. Different state, different life, minimum contact. We only communicated through dead drops. Old school tradecraft. Nothing digital, nothing intercepted. We thought if we stayed invisible, they'd forget, move on, assume the threat passed. But they didn't. No, 2019, your father contacted me, said someone approached him, came to his cabin. Expensive suit, professional, offered $10 million to destroy the hard drive, forget everything, die quietly. He turned back, said it'd be better for everyone. Nobody wanted ancient history. War was over. What did it matter? He refused. Of course, Declan Garrett didn't know how to do wrong, even when it'd save his life, even when everyone would understand if he'd taken the money. Silas's voice cracked. He called me the night before he died. Payphone. Said if anything happened, I should find you. Wait till you were ready. Make sure you knew the truth. Make sure his death meant something. The cardiac arrest. Potassium chloride injection causes cardiac arrest that looks completely natural unless specifically testing for it. 76-year-old man, lives alone, found dead in workshop. No signs of struggle. Everything consistent with heart attack. He sat, looked older now. By the time they found him too late, potassium metabolized. Autopsy showed nothing. Case closed. Old man dies. Nobody questioned it. Reese gripped the table, knuckles white, room spinning. Her father, the man who raised her, who taught her strength, murdered, killed while she lived in ignorance, too scared to follow his letter, too scared to ask questions. Who? Single word, hard, angry, demanding. Who did it? Silas reached into the folder one more time. Single photograph, placed it carefully. Man in his mid-60s, corporate handsome. Expensive suit, American flag pin, shaking hands with someone cropped out. Conference room behind, money and power captured on film. Victor Sterling, VP of Operations for Vanguard Solutions 2002, running the show in Afghanistan, signed off on weapons deals and opium purchases. His finger tapped the photo. Now CEO of Sentinel Global Security. Same company, different name, rebranded 2010 after Vanguard got bad press. Reese studied the photo, memorized the face. Easy smile, confidence of a man who'd never faced consequences. 66 now, worth $2.3 billion. Sentinel has contracts with Pentagon, CIA, NSA, Homeland Security, State Department. Every agency that matters. Untouchable. Connected everywhere. Senators on speed dial, generals at his dinner table. Money to make problems disappear. Cole leaned over the photo. He ordered the hits. Can't prove it without the hard drive, but yeah, Victor had the most to lose. The laptop had his name everywhere. His signature on transfers. His email authorizing sales. His instructions on structuring contracts to avoid oversight. Silas met Reese's eyes. He knew what we found. Been eliminating witnesses ever since. Silence broken only by a clock ticking, each second falling like stones. Finally, Cole spoke. You said my father hid the hard drive. Where? Silas smiled. First genuine smile Reese had seen. Appreciation, respect. That's genius part. Declan knew they'd come after anyone associated, anyone who might know location. So he didn't tell anyone, not even me. Not one person knew. Then how? He left clues, in his letter, in journals, in training he gave you. Silas looked at Reese. Everything you need is in knowledge he passed down. Shared experiences only you have. Best encryption isn't digital. It's memory, experience, knowledge that can't be tortured out because only one person has the right combination. Reese pulled the letter from her pocket, unfolded it, read with new understanding, GPS coordinates, 34.8794 degrees north, 79.0128 degrees west. Cole was already on his phone. North Carolina, Uwharrie National Forest, middle of nowhere. Declan bought land there in the 90s, 20 acres of nothing, no structures, no improvements, no reason except hiding something. Silas flipped over a map. North Carolina, red X in dense forest. He buried it there, I'm sure. But I don't know exactly where. Coordinates get you to general area, 20 acres of forest, could search months without more specific information. Reese stared at the letter, her father's handwriting, instructions from beyond the grave. He said I'd know what to do. She closed her eyes, thought through 15 years of training, every lesson, every detail. Understanding crystallized, the metal box in her trunk. I need something. They walked outside. Reese opened the Honda's trunk, pulled out the metal box wrapped in oilcloth, set it on the truck hood. Simple combination lock. 3 numbers. She tried her birthday, 3/12/68, didn't open. Tried Declan's birthday. Nothing. Cole watched. What are you thinking? Everything means something, every detail. He never did anything without purpose. She looked at GPS coordinates again, 34.8794. Tried those on the lock. 348. Click. The box opened. Inside, wrapped in more oilcloth, a bullet casing, 50 caliber. Engraved carefully along the side. Phantom 2520 Anaconda 02. His record shot, Silas breathed. The 2520 everyone talks about. Reese turned the casing in her hands. Cool, heavy, real. He used it as a marker, a key, understanding formed like ice crystallizing. The hard drive is buried at the exact distance and direction from the coordinates as his record shot. 25-20 yards. I need to calculate direction based on something in his training. Something only I'd know. Cole whistled. Brilliant. Even if someone found coordinates, they'd have no idea where to dig. Need distance and bearing without that 20 acres and a needle in a haystack. But you know, Reese thought hard, 25-20 yards from coordinates. But which direction her father would use something meaningful, something she'd remember, personal. Then it hit. My birthday, March 12th, 71st day of the year. She looked at Silas. 71 degrees, that's the bearing. 71 degrees from true north. Silas pulled a protractor from his truck, spread the map, measured carefully, 25-20 yards at 71 degrees from GPS coordinates. His finger stopped at a specific point, creek bend, rock formation, exactly where calculation led. Damn, Cole said softly. Your father taught you well. We leave tonight. Silas was moving, pulling gear from the house, rifles, ammunition, night vision, medical supplies. Everything for tactical operation in hostile territory, because that's what this was, war. If they've been watching you, and they have, they know you came here. Maybe 6-hour head start before they figure what we're doing and where. Cole pulled out his phone, stared, put it away without calling. What? Was going to call for backup. Other SEALs I trust. But who can I trust if Victor has Pentagon connections, he has military connections? Law enforcement. Anyone I call might be compromised, might report back. So it's just us three. Silas handed Cole a rifle. M4A1, military grade, real thing. Like old days, small team, dark of night, get in, get objective, get out. Pause. Except we're not 25 anymore. Cole checked the rifle, loaded magazine, chamber check, safety, everything automatic. An objective isn't Taliban commander. It's evidence that could bring down a billionaire with friends everywhere and resources to make us disappear. Reese accepted the rifle Silas handed her. Remington 700, same model Declan used, same one she'd trained with. She checked it. Magazine, chamber, safety, scope, everything perfect. Which is why we move fast. Grab drive, get it safe, then figure how to go public without dying. They loaded into Silas's truck as sun dipped below horizon. 3 hours to North Carolina. Then night hiked to find a hard drive buried 22 years ago by a man who'd known he might not live to retrieve it. A man who trusted his daughter would be smart enough and skilled enough and brave enough to finish what he started. Headlights cut through gathering darkness as they pulled onto the road. Behind them, Silas's house sat dark. Safe house that wasn't safe anymore. Refuge that expired the moment Reese broke that record. Cole watched mirrors. Black Ford Explorer. 3 cars back. There since we left. Silas's jaw tightened. Spotted 5 minutes ago. Professional tail. Proper distance. Probably backup vehicles rotating. Standard surveillance. Can we lose them? Not without confirming we know. Better to let them follow. Make them think we're oblivious. Ghost them closer to objective. Reese turned carefully, looked through rear window. Explorer there. Dark. Tinted windows. Perfect distance. Neither too close nor far. Professional. What happens in North Carolina? Then we disappear. Silas took a turn. Explorer followed at exact interval. I know roads where GPS doesn't work and towers don't reach. Ghost them old-fashioned way. Terrain and darkness and skills they stopped teaching. They drove in silence 30 more minutes. Explorer never wavered. Never closed. Never dropped back. Patient predator waiting. Cole's phone buzzed. He looked, frowned. Text from unknown number. Read aloud. Stop digging or everyone dies. Words hung like smoke. Heavy. Toxic. Trying to scare us off. Silas's hand steady. Means they're not ready to move. Want us to quit. Walk away. Forget. Forget we know. Will they let us? Reese asked the question that mattered. That determined if this was rescue or suicide. If we stopped now, turned around, would they leave us alone? Silas met her eyes in rear view. Truth there before he spoke. Your father tried 17 years. Stayed quiet. Hidden. Minded his business. How'd that work? Answer obvious. 76-year-old man dead in workshop with potassium chloride and death certificate saying cardiac arrest. No walking away. Not anymore. Maybe never. Moment Declan copied that laptop, refused to destroy evidence, chose truth over safety. He set this in motion. Now Reese was caught in the current, swept along whether she wanted or not. She'd started something by breaking that record, by proving who she was, by connecting dots between Phantom Garrett's daughter and the old man murdered for knowing too much. Only way forward was through darkness, through forest, through whatever Victor, Sterling, and Sentinel Global threw at them, all the way to truth buried 22 years. Waiting in North Carolina soil like unexploded bomb that could bring down empires and destroy careers and expose corruption at highest levels of American power. Silas turned onto smaller road, then smaller. Explorer followed, patient, relentless. Machine following programming. Cole pulled device from pack. Small, electronic. Looked at screen, face hardened. GPS tracker, under rear wheel well. They're at least a bay, probably longer. Of course, they'd known about Reese before she'd made the shot. Watching, waiting, tracking movements with electronic precision. Shot just confirmed suspicions. That Phantom Garrett's daughter wasn't just a teacher. That skills had been passed down. That knowledge hadn't died. Now they were following that knowledge to where secrets were buried, where truth waited like a loaded gun. Silas pulled off main road onto dirt track barely wide enough for truck. Vehicle bounced over roots and rocks. Explorer followed, headlights painting shadows through trees. Closer now, less patient, sensing time running out. Hold on. Silas killed headlights. World went dark. Only moonlight filtered through canopy. He accelerated. Truck lurched forward blind. Branches scraped sides like fingernails on chalkboard. Something crunched under tires. Behind them, its Explorer's headlights vanished as it went dark too. But Silas knew this road, had driven it 100 times preparing for moments like this. Hard left onto trail barely wider than truck. Branches closed from both sides. Kind of trail you'd miss if you didn't know exactly where. Explorer missed the turn. Brake lights flashed red. Too late. By the time they corrected, Silas had gained quarter mile. He drove 10 more minutes, twisting, turning, following paths that weren't on maps, that existed only in memory of old soldiers who'd learned terrain was sometimes the best weapon. Finally pulled truck into ravine. Killed engine. Silence rushed in. Forest breathing. No headlights, no engines, just wind in trees and distant owl hunting. We walk from here, 5 miles to coordinates. Move fast and quiet there by midnight. Retrieve drive, gone before they figure where we went. They geared up in darkness. Rifles, night vision, water, first aid. Silas moved with practiced efficiency. Cole with precision of muscle memory. Reese tried keeping up, copying movements, hoping body remembered enough training. They moved into forest in tactical formation. Silas on point, Cole rear security. Reese in middle with GPS unit guiding toward coordinates that represented salvation or damnation. Forest alive with night sounds. Crickets, frogs, small animals in undergrowth. Fox calling distant. Creek gurgling over rocks worn smooth by centuries. Reese's heart hammered. Every shadow looked like threat. Every sound like approaching danger. But Silas and Cole moved with calm confidence. Weapons ready, eyes scanning, bodies loose and prepared for violence that might not come, but probably would. After an hour, Silas raised fist. Everyone stopped. He pointed. Through trees. Small clearing ahead. 6 figures moving with tactical precision. Dark clothing, weapons, night vision. Professional operators doing professional work. They'd beaten them here, despite tail shaking, despite tracker removal. Sentinel predicted where they were going and got there first. Set up, waiting. Cole leaned close to Silas's ear. Whispered something Reese couldn't hear. Silas nodded, made hand signals. Wordless communication from years operating together. They backed away, slowly. Circled around. Forest became ally, concealing movement. Masking approach with wind and animal sounds and natural chaos. Took 30 more minutes getting into position. Ridgeline overlooking clearing, 200 yards separation. High ground, tactical advantage that determined battles. Through night vision scope, Reese could see clearly. 6 contractors, professional, military bearing, digging. Already dug 3 holes different locations. Searching, testing. Looking for hard drive using methods that'd take days to cover 20 acres. They didn't know about calculation. About 25-20 yards at 71 degrees. About specific spot by creek bend where Declan buried insurance. Searching blind, hoping. guessing, using resources and manpower to make up for lack of intelligence. Silas pointed to location 50 yards from where contractors dug. That was the spot. Real location. They could see it from here. Distinctive rock formation. Creek bend. Exactly where Reese's calculations predicted. But between them and that spot stood 6 armed men sent to kill them. Cole leaned close, breath warm against her ear. Can you make the shot? She looked through scope. 200 yards. Night. Moving targets. Wind minimal. Temperature cool. Visibility good with night vision. Kind of shot that'd be easy in daylight. Harder now, but not impossible. Yes. If this goes bad, we'll need you covering. Silas and I move to location. Retrieve drive. You keep them pinned. Keep them from flanking. Keep them from killing us. Could she shoot at human beings? People who die if her bullets found marks. People with families and lives and dreams ending because she pulled trigger. She thought about her father, about Daniel and Marcus and Travis and Ryan, about all the soldiers who died in war prolonged for profit, about men who'd made billions from blood, about justice and right and wrong, and whether any mattered when alternative was letting evil win because too scared to do what needed doing. Yes. Silas checked watch, looked at Cole. Wordless communication passed, language of men who'd fought together, trusted each other with lives where trust was only currency. They moved, silent as ghosts, down ridge, into forest, toward rock formation and buried truth that could change everything. Reese stayed on ridge, rifle steady, breathing controlled, watching through scope as 2 old warriors crept through darkness toward destiny, 22 years making. Contractors hadn't spotted them, still focused on methodical search, digging, testing, looking in wrong places because they didn't know how Phantom Garrett thought, didn't know about calculations and distances and how a father leaves clues in training he gives daughter. Silas and Cole reached rock formation, started digging, fast but quiet. Dirt flying in controlled amounts. Disciplined, professional, product of decades doing this work. One contractor turned, raised night vision, scanned area. Reese's crosshairs settled on his chest. 200 yards, center mass, easy shot. But it announced presence. Start fight they might not win. Her finger touched trigger. Not yet, not unless necessary. Hold fire until moment demanded. Contractor's radio crackled. He responded, turned away, back to supervising dig. Silas's hand disappeared into hole he'd been digging. Came back up, holding something. Waterproof case. Military spec. Kind that could survive burial for decades. He showed Cole. Even from 200 yards, Reese could see relief on both faces. They'd found it. Hard drive, evidence, truth that could bring down Victor Sterling and expose corruption and maybe give Declan's death meaning beyond tragedy. Then everything went wrong at once. Lights blazed from 3 directions. Floodlights on tripods. Blinding, overwhelming night vision. Reese ripped off goggles, blinked against sudden brightness, turning night into artificial day. In clearing, Silas and Cole frozen. Caught in open, surrounded. Tactical nightmare every operator feared. Voice boomed through bullhorn, amplified, authoritative. Voice of someone used to being obeyed. Master Sergeant Brennan, Mr. Hawthorne, set down the case, hands on heads. You're surrounded by 20 contractors with orders to shoot if you resist. 20, not 6, others hidden, waiting, whole thing a trap from beginning, carefully orchestrated to let them find drive, then take it. Along with their lives, Reese's crosshairs swept the clearing, counting targets. She could see 12. Others must be in trees. Positions she couldn't identify. Positions that probably had her in sights. Silas and Cole didn't move. Didn't comply. Stood frozen. Calculating odds that didn't favor them. Voice came again, closer. We know you're up there too, Miss Garrett. Thermal signature quite clear. Put down rifle. Come out. Or we start shooting your friends. 10 seconds to decide. 10 seconds. Then they die. Count began. 10. Reese's mind raced. They had thermal, probably tracked her whole time. Every move, every position. She'd been in crosshairs since reaching ridge. 9. One shot and she'd be dead. 8. Silas looked up toward where she hid, even without night vision, even blinded by floodlights. Found her position with instinct from decades reading terrain. Shook his head, mouthed one word. Run. 7. 6. 5. Cole's hand moved toward rifle. Suicide play, last act of defiance, last middle finger to people who thought they could kill with impunity. 4. 3. Reese stood, stepped into light, rifle lowered, hands visible, making herself target because alternative was watching two good men die for trying to help. Don't shoot, I'm coming out. Relief on Silas's face warred with fury. Cole looked like he wanted to scream, but contractors didn't fire, didn't move, waited as Reese made her way down ridge, through trees, into clearing where floodlights turned night into day and truth into weapon cutting both ways. Figure stepped forward from darkness beyond lights, older, distinguished. Expensive outdoor gear never seeing real wilderness. Silver hair, confident smile. Smile of man who'd won every game. Victor Sterling in person. $2.3 billion wearing LL Bean and tactical boots. Man who'd ordered her father's murder. Who'd killed good men to protect profits. Who'd corrupted war and gotten away with it 22 years. He looked at Reese like collector examining rare specimen. Interesting, but ultimately disposable. Phantom Garrett's daughter. You have his eyes. Same stubborn determination that got him killed. He gestured at waterproof case in Silas's hands. Thank you for finding that. Been looking 22 years. Spent millions searching. You just led me right to it. Smile widened. Almost makes me wish I'd let your father live. He trained you well. Reese's voice came out steady despite fear coursing through veins. Despite 20 rifles pointed at her and knowledge she was probably about to die in North Carolina forest without anyone knowing truth. You murdered him. Victor's smile didn't waver. I solved a problem. There's a difference. Gestured to contractor. Man moved forward, took waterproof case from Silas's hands. Silas didn't resist. 20 rifles made resistance death sentence with no upside. Contractor brought case to Victor. He opened it with careful attention of someone handling treasure or explosives, or both. Inside, wrapped in vacuum-sealed plastic, a hard drive. Military grade. 2 terabytes. 22 years waiting compressed into 6 ounces of silicon and metal. Victor held it up to light. $847 million. That's what this represents. Evidence of contracts and transfers that'd send me to prison for life. Smiled, genuine pleasure. If it ever saw light of day, which it won't. Cole spoke, voice cold, flat, voice of man who'd accepted death and no longer cared about consequences. You killed my stepbrother, Daniel Hawthorne, man who served his country, believed in something bigger than money, died trying to do right. I removed obstacles. Victor's eyes didn't change, didn't show guilt or shame or any recognition. What he said might be monstrous. Daniel was obstacle, as were Webb and York and Cross and your father, Miss Garrett. Good men, I'm sure. Principled, honorable, but good men who stood between me and evolution of modern warfare. Expression sharpened. You know what Vanguard became, what Sentinel does now. Didn't wait for answer, didn't need one. Speech he'd practiced, justified, made peace with years ago. We don't just provide security, we enable policy, make decisions weak politicians won't. Keep wars running long enough to create stability. Long enough to build infrastructure, long enough to reshape regions according to American interests, according to interests of democracy and freedom and all things that make world better. You mean your interests? Silas's voice thick with disgust. American soldiers died so you could get richer, buy yachts and jets and senators. That's all this was. Greed dressed as patriotism. American soldiers die in every war. That's the job, what they signed up for. Victor's expression didn't change. At least with Sentinel, their deaths meant something, meant continued funding for military, continued presence in strategic regions, continued influence for American power. Looked at Reese. Your father called me war criminal. I called him short-sighted. History will decide which was right, but I'll be alive to see that judgment. He won't. Reese's hands clenched into fists, every muscle screaming to move. Fight. Do something other than stand here listening to man justify murder, with economics and geopolitics and sociopathic reasoning putting profit over human life. You're going to kill us now. Not question, statement, acceptance of reality. Victor's smile widened. No, Miss Garrett, I'm giving you choice. Same choice I gave your father before he made mistake of refusing. Pulled phone from pocket. Tapped screen with deliberate slowness. Showed what displayed. Bank account. Offshore account with balance that made her breath catch and mind go blank and entire worldview shift sideways. $20 million. Wire transfer, instant, untraceable. Split 3 ways, 6.6 million each. Enough to disappear anywhere. Live without worry. Forget tonight happened. Offer hung like poison. Beautiful, tempting, absolutely corrupting. Kind of money that changed everything, made problems disappear, turned principles into luxuries you couldn't afford. Cole laughed, sharp, bitter. Laugh of man hearing something so absurd it circled back to comedy. You think we can be bought after what you've done, after people you killed. Everyone can be bought, just question of price. Victor's eyes moved between them, reading, calculating, processing. Your stepbrother couldn't be bought, but he was young, idealistic, stupid. You're older now, seen how world really works, how justice is luxury the powerful afford and powerless can't. How principles don't pay rent or put food on table or matter when you're dead. Silas spat on ground. Blood money, that's all. Money earned from deaths of men who trusted their country, believed they were fighting for something that mattered. All money is blood money if you trace back far enough. Every fortune built on someone else's suffering. Victor pocketed phone. But I'll make it easier. Take money and live, or refuse and die right here, right now. Your body's never found. This clearing seeded and fertilized. 5 years, no one will know anything happened. Your disappearances, mysteries. Tragic, but ultimately forgotten. Reese's mind raced, looking for options, looking for leverage, looking for anything that might shift calculus from certain death to possible survival. Her father had been in this position, been offered money, refused, died for that refusal, but he'd also left clues. Prepared, planned for this moment, even if he hadn't lived to see it. You need us alive. Words came out before she'd fully formed thought. Instinct, desperation, hope, all mixed. Victor's eyebrow raised. Interested? Curious? Interesting, why would I need that? Because you don't know if that's only copy. She was bluffing, making it up. But Victor didn't know, couldn't know. My father was too smart to bury one hard drive without insurance, without backup, without protection. Voice gained strength, confidence born of desperation. For all you know, there are 3 more, 5 more, 10 more, hidden in locations only we know. Places you'll never find without our cooperation. Bluff, desperate gamble. Hail Mary thrown into darkness hoping someone would catch. Reese had no idea if there were other copies. Declan never mentioned backups. But Victor didn't know, couldn't know. And doubt was weapon when you had no others. His smile faded slightly. First crack in confidence. First hint that maybe, possibly, he didn't have complete control. Your father had 22 years to reveal evidence if he had copies. He didn't, which means this is it, only copy. Or means he was waiting for right moment, waiting for people he could trust, people who'd know what to do with it. Reese took step forward. One contractor raised rifle. Victor waved him off. You kill us, you'll spend rest of your life wondering if somewhere backup exists. Wondering if tomorrow's the day it surfaces. Wondering if every journalist who calls every investigation that opens is beginning of end. Victor studied her face. Long seconds passed. Forest sounds seemed to pause, waiting for his decision. Floodlights hummed, generators running somewhere in darkness. Electricity powering this moment where truth and power collided. You're bluffing. Maybe, or maybe my father taught me more than shooting. Maybe he taught me about dead drops and insurance, and how to make sure powerful men stay awake at night, wondering if they've really won, or if they're just waiting for axe to fall. Silence stretched. Victor's jaw worked like chewing on scenarios, calculating probabilities, running risk assessments the way CEOs did, way men with billions did when faced with threats to empire. Finally spoke. Prove it. Tell me where another copy is hidden, right now. If you're telling truth, you'll know. If you're bluffing, you won't. Reese's heart hammered. She had nothing. No proof, no backup location, just desperation and hope someone somewhere thought ahead. Then Cole's voice cut through tension. Steady, confident. Voice of man who'd just drawn royal flush. Fort Bragg, safety deposit box. Bank of America branch on Bragg Boulevard. Box number 347. Keys hidden in base of flagpole at Special Operations Memorial. Paused. Let it sink in. Your father told me that night he called, week before he died. Said if anything happened, that's where I'd find insurance. Said you'd need it someday. Reese stared at Cole. Was he telling truth or making same desperate bluff? His face gave nothing. Stone, professional. Face of man who'd learned to lie convincingly where bad lies got you killed. Victor's eyes narrowed. Check it. One contractor pulled out laptop, satellite connection, typed rapidly. Pulled up what looked like bank records. More typing. Face went pale. Sir, there's box registered under that number. Rented 2019. Still active? Monthly payments from account registered to David Hawthorne. Cole's father, Daniel's father, man who'd lost son and spent rest of life grieving. Maybe man who'd helped Declan set this up. Maybe man who'd understood some fights continued long after fighters died. Victor looked at hard drive in hands, then at them, then at contractors. Mental calculations visible in tightening jaw, narrowing eyes, shift in posture from confident to cautious. There's fourth option, voice silk over steel, smooth and dangerous. I keep you alive, but not free. Comfortable imprisonment, facility, secure, off books. You live there until I verify every backup found and destroyed. Could take months, could take years, but you'd be alive. Better than alternative. That's not living, Silas's voice flat, final. That's just slow death. Prison with better amenities. No different than killing us, except we watch ourselves waste away. Best offer you're going to get. Reese's mind worked frantically. They were trapped, outgunned, surrounded. Even if they fought, even if they took some contractors, they'd still die. Hard drive would disappear. Truth would stay buried. Victor would win. Everything Declan fought for would be for nothing. Unless, I'll make you counteroffer. Victor's eyebrows rose. Amused. Interested. You're not in position to negotiate. I broke 10-year seal record today, in front of 30 witnesses with cell phones. That footage is all over social media by now. Military forums, shooting communities. Phantom Garrett's daughter is famous as of 6 hours ago. Paused, let him process. Very visible, very public. So I'm visible now. If I disappear tonight, people will ask questions. SEALs will ask questions. Kind of questions that lead to investigations. Kind even you can't shut down completely without raising more suspicions. Victor's smile returned, but thinner. You think internet fame protects you, influencers disappear all time. Tragic accidents, missing person cases never solved. I think it complicates your cleanup. I think it means you can't just make me vanish without consequences. Reese took another step forward, close enough to see calculation in Victor's eyes, weighing risks and benefits. Here's my offer. We walk away tonight. Now we keep hard drive. You keep freedom. And we establish new kind of insurance. Mutual assured destruction. Let words settle. We have evidence that destroys you. You have resources that could destroy us. We both walk away knowing if either side moves, both sides lose. Cold War doctrine. Worked 50 years between superpowers. Can work between us. Clearing went silent except for hum of floodlights and distant sound of creak. Victor stared at her like puzzle he couldn't solve. Variable he hadn't accounted for. Your father made similar proposal. I rejected it. Look where that got him. And look where that got you. 22 years of paranoia, hunting down old men, spending resources on cleanup, living in fear that someday, somehow, truth would surface. Reese's voice gained strength. Meanwhile, Sentinel's under congressional scrutiny. Pentagon's asking questions. How long before someone makes connection? How long before your house of cards collapses? Not because we exposed you, but because you drew too much attention trying to silence us. Victor's jaw tightened. Muscle jumped in cheek. For first time since stepping into light, he looked uncertain. Not afraid. Men like Victor didn't do fear, but uncertain, calculating whether killing them created more problems than it solved. If I agreed to this arrangement, there are conditions. Name them. Hard drive stays buried. Literally, you don't access it, don't copy it, don't show anyone. Remains in secure location known only to you three. Untouched. Forgotten. Agreed, with condition of our own. We create dead man's switch. If anything happens to any of us. Accidents, illnesses, mysterious disappearances, evidence automatically goes public. No exceptions. Victor's lips pressed into thin line. How would this switch work? We have lawyer, someone completely removed from this. Someone who doesn't know what's in package they're holding. They have instructions. If we don't check in every week, package gets opened and distributed to every major news outlet in America. Reese held his gaze. You can't kill lawyer without revealing what you're hiding. Can't find package without one of us telling you where it is. Mutual assured destruction. Victor turned away, walked to edge of clearing, stood with back to them, silhouetted against floodlights. Shoulders rose and fell with deep breaths, breathing of man making decision that had defined rest of life. When he turned back, expression he had changed, still calculating, but resigned. Look of man who'd been outmaneuvered and knew it. You have 1 week to set this up, 1 week to establish dead man's switch and prove to me it's real. After that, we revisit. If I find any evidence you're trying to expose what's on drive deals off, he pointed at Reese, and you all die. His finger shifted, aimed at her heart like weapon. Your daughter, Lily, 16, Richmond High School, honor student, wants to be veterinarian. Threat clear, wasn't just their lives at stake. Understood. Stood. Reese nodded, so did Silas and Cole. Victor gestured to contractors. Let them go. But I want surveillance 24/7. If they so much as talk to journalists, I want to know immediately. Contractors lowered weapons, reluctantly. Tension remained thick. But immediate threat of death had passed. For now. Victor walked past Reese, stopped, spoke quietly enough only she could hear. Your father was better man than I am, but better men don't change world. They just die with clean consciences. Met her eyes. You have his skill. Hope you don't inherit his sense of martyrdom. Because next time, no negotiations, only bullets. Then he was gone, walking into darkness beyond floodlights. Contractors followed, one by one, until only humming lights remained, casting harsh shadows on clearing that almost became graveyard. Moment last contractor disappeared, Reese's legs nearly gave out. Cole caught her elbow, steadied her. That was bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen. Not sure which. Voice shook slightly, adrenaline wearing off. Silas retrieved waterproof case from where contractor had set it, held it like it was both precious and poisonous. We have 1 week to set up something that probably doesn't exist. Create insurance out of whole cloth. Convince Victor Sterling we're more valuable alive than dead. Safety deposit box. Reese looked at Cole. Was that real? Cole's expression grim. I have no idea, but I figured if I sounded confident enough, he'd believe it. Or at least doubt. Doubt is all we needed to stay alive tonight. And dead man's switch. We'll figure it out. We have lawyers, resources. 1 week to build cage that holds both sides. Looked at hard drive. First, we need to secure that. Really secure it, not buried in forest. Somewhere that multiple systems would have to fail before it could be compromised. Silas was already moving, gathering gear, erasing evidence of presence. I know place. Multiple layers of security, off-grid, no digital footprint. Get there by morning. Set everything up. Then disappear until we've built framework, Victor demanded. They gathered equipment, moved through forest with renewed urgency. Behind them, floodlights shut off one by one, plunging clearing back into darkness, erasing evidence of what almost happened. What might still happen if they couldn't deliver on promises made under duress? Hike back to Silas's truck took 2 hours. Every shadow felt like surveillance. Every sound like contractors doubling back to finish what Victor started. But they reached vehicle without incident. Drove through back roads in silence, each lost in thoughts about deals made with devils and whether survival was worth compromises required. Dawn broke over Virginia countryside as they pulled into storage facility outside Richmond. Silas had unit there, climate controlled, heavily secured. He opened it to reveal space that looked like prepper's dream or nightmare. Supplies, weapons, communications equipment, everything to survive or fight or both. He also had safe, biometric, key code, physical lock, kind of redundant security requiring 3 people to open and 3 to close. They placed hard drive inside, sealed it, set protocols. Now it'd take all 3 agreeing to access again. One person couldn't retrieve alone, even under coercion, even under torture. System required willing cooperation from multiple parties. Elegant, network of tripwires and fail-safes that'd activate if any of them died or disappeared. Wasn't perfect. Victor had resources that could potentially circumvent some protections. But it was good enough. Good enough that killing them became more risky than letting them live. Good enough that mutual assured destruction became more than empty words spoken in forest clearing. 3 months passed, kind of months where you wake each morning surprised to still be alive. Where every phone call might be last, where every car following too close might be end. But calls came, weekly check-ins, texts between Reese and Cole and Silas. All good. 3 words that meant everything. Proof of life. Confirmation arrangements still held. That Victor hadn't moved. That mutual destruction remained mutual. Reese went back to teaching, Richmond High School, American history. Irony wasn't lost on her. Teaching sanitized versions of events while living truth textbooks would never print. But something had changed. Marine Corps had offered her contract position. Civilian instructor at Quantico, teaching precision, shooting to young Marines. Part of her wanted to refuse. Stay invisible. Protect Lily from world that had already tried to kill her mother once. But another part that sounded like Declan. That part said some things were worth risk. She took job. First class skeptical, 30 Marines, fresh from basic, looking at 43-year-old woman in civilian clothes and wondering what hell she could teach them. She didn't say anything, just led them to range. Set up target at 2,000 yards. Explained every calculation as she worked through it. Wind, distance, Coriolis effect, temperature, humidity, all processed without computers or apps or technology. Just math and observation and knowledge that came from 15 years training with man who'd understood excellence was built from thousands of small decisions done right. Then she shot. Dead center. Metallic clang echoing across range like bell announcing truth. Skepticism evaporated, replaced by attention, respect, hunger to learn from someone who'd proven themselves in only language that mattered to warriors. Now 6 months later, she stood in her office. Small, Spartan, but hers. On wall hung photo of Declan in Afghanistan. Young, intense, holding a rifle like it was extension of soul. Next to it, bullet casing from his record shot. 25 20-yard shot that had become legend. That had become key to finding truth buried in North Carolina soil. And next to that, her own casing. From 2,400-yard shot that broke 10-year record and started war, she was still fighting, would always fight. Because truth never stayed buried forever. It just waited, gathered pressure, until it exploded into world in ways that changed everything. Phone buzzed. Text from Cole. Just checking in, weekly ritual. She texted back. All good. Teaching good Marines to be great shots. Cole's response came immediately. Phantom would be proud. Another text. This one from Silas. Saw news. Congressional committee investigating defense contractor fraud. Sterling's company on list. Reese smiled. Wheels were turning. Slowly, but turning. Investigations that had nothing to do with buried hard drives or dead operatives. Just routine oversight that happened to be looking in right direction. Maybe not today. Maybe not this year. But eventually someone would dig deep enough, ask right questions, connect right dots. And when they did, hard drive in its triple lock safe would be waiting, ready, loaded gun pointed at heart of corruption. Until then, she had Marines to teach, skills to pass on, legacy to honor in a way Declan would have wanted, not with vengeance or violence, but with patience, precision. Understanding that some shots took years to line up, that some targets required more than skill. They required time and position and willingness to wait for perfect moment. Through office window, next class of Marines was assembling on range. Young, eager, some cocky, some scared. All about to learn shooting wasn't about gun. It was about understanding world, about patience and observation, and willingness to work harder than anyone expected, because excellence demanded nothing less. Reese grabbed rifle case, Remington 700 that belonged to Declan. That carried his modifications and notes and ghost of his hands on stock. Time to teach. Time to pass on knowledge earned in mountains and deserts and forests where men fought and died for causes both noble and corrupt. Time to make sure Phantom Garrett's legacy wasn't just record shot or buried evidence. It was generation of warriors who understood precision mattered, that honor mattered, that some things were worth fighting for. Even when fight was invisible and victory might take decades. She walked onto range, 30 faces turned toward her, ready to learn, ready to be transformed from kids with guns into Marines with purpose. Good morning, Marines. I'm Reese Garrett. My father was Colonel Declan Garrett, call sign Phantom. He made 25 20-yard combat shot in Afghanistan without computer, without spotter, without anything except skill and patience and understanding. Paused, let them absorb. Today, I'm going to teach you how to do what you think is impossible. Because impossible is just words people use when they don't understand math. One Marine raised hand, young, maybe 19, fresh tattoo on forearm, saying Semper Fi. Ma'am, what's most important thing about being sniper? Reese thought about Declan, about Silas and Cole, about Daniel and Marcus and Travis and Ryan, about all men who'd died for truth, who'd believed some things were worth more than survival. Patience. Some shots take years to line up. Some targets require more than skill. They require time, position, willingness to wait for perfect moment. Looked across range, at targets set at impossible distances, at challenges that seemed insurmountable until you understood variables. My father taught me invisible forces shape everything. Wind, gravity, time, pressure, all working together or against you depending whether you understand them. And another Marine spoke, older, maybe late 20s, combat action ribbon on chest. Is it true you broke Cole Hawthorne's record? Yes. How? Reese smiled. Kind of smile that carried weight. History. Lessons learned in blood and darkness and spaces between heartbeats where decisions were made. By remembering excellence isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, understanding moment, respecting invisible, and refusing to miss when it matters most. Gestured to range. Let's get started. That evening, Reese drove home to a small house she rented in Richmond. Lily in kitchen, homework spread across table, earbuds in, tapping pencil to music Reese couldn't hear. She looked up when her mother entered, pulled out one earbud. How was work? Good. Taught some Marines that impossible is just math they haven't learned yet. Lily rolled eyes, but smiling. You sound like Grandpa. Words hit harder than expected. Reese felt tears sting eyes, blinked them away. I'll take that as compliment. It was meant as one. Lily went back to homework, then paused, looked up again. Mom, can I ask you something? Always. Why do you do it teaching, shooting, all of it? You could just, I don't know, live normal life, not work so hard, not worry so much. Reese sat across from her daughter, looked at this person she'd brought into world, this bright, beautiful girl who wanted to save animals and believed world was fundamentally good. How do you explain darkness about corruption, about men who profit from blood? How do you explain sometimes price of peace is eternal vigilance? Because some things are worth fighting for, and some people are worth remembering. Like Grandpa. Like Grandpa. Lily considered this, nodded, went back to homework. Reese stood, walked to window, looked out at quiet street, normal suburban evening, kids playing basketball, someone walking dog, life continuing like it always did. Oblivious to wars fought in shadows. Phone buzzed one more time. Unknown number. She almost didn't open it, but something made her look. Single photograph. No message. Photo showed Victor Sterling, leaving what looked like Senate building, surrounded by men in suits, his face composed, confident, but there was something in eyes, something that might have been worry or might have been nothing. Photo disappeared as soon as she'd seen it, self-destructing, leaving no trace. Message. From someone, Silas maybe, or Cole, or someone else entirely. Reminder that game continued, that Victor was being watched just as they were being watched. That balance held, precarious, dangerous, but held. Reese deleted notification, went back to kitchen, helped Lily with chemistry homework, made dinner, did dishes, lived normal life that sat on top of truth like ice on dark water. Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed, Reese sat in her room, pulled out metal box she kept in closet. Inside was letter from Declan, one that started everything. She unfolded it carefully, read it for thousandth time. Words at end. You're better than I ever was. Don't let anyone tell you different, especially yourself. She folded it back up, placed it in box, closed lid. Tomorrow she'd teach more Marines. Next week she'd check in with Cole and Silas. Next month maybe congressional investigation would dig a little deeper. Or maybe not. Maybe it'd take years, decades. Maybe she'd be old before justice came. Maybe it'd never come at all. But she'd keep teaching, keep passing on skills, keep honoring memory of man who'd believed some truths were worth dying for. Because in end, that's what mattered. Not victory, not revenge, not even justice, but refusal to forget, willingness to carry weight of truth even when no one else knew you were carrying it. Understanding that excellence wasn't about being seen or recognized or celebrated. It was about doing what needed doing. In darkness, in silence, in spaces between heartbeats where world was decided by people who refused to miss when it mattered most. Reese turned off light, lay down, closed eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. Not yet, because something was nagging at her, something incomplete. The hard drive in storage, the evidence, the truth. It sat there, waiting, a loaded gun that had never been fired. Victor was still free, still wealthy, still powerful. Daniel and Marcus and Travis and Ryan and Declan All dead, no justice, no closure, just mutual assured destruction and waiting. Was that enough? Her phone buzzed again. She almost ignored it, but it was Cole. Can't sleep either, she texted back. No, thinking about them, about what happens if we just wait forever. Three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Meet me tomorrow, Silas 2. We need to talk. 2 years later, Senate hearing room, Washington, D.C. cameras everywhere. Reporters, senators asking questions. Reese sat at witness table. Cole on her left, Silas on her right. Behind them, families. David Hawthorne, Daniel's father, white-haired now. But here, Marcus Webb's widow. Travis York's children, Emma and Jack, grown now. Ryan Cross's sister, all of them finally here. Miss Garrett, can you confirm that Sentinel Global Security engaged in fraudulent contracts between 2002 and 2008? Yes, Senator. $847 million documented. And these contracts involve what specifically? Weapons sales to Taliban fighters while simultaneously holding security contracts with United States government. Opium trafficking, systematic prolonging of combat operations for profit. How do you know this? My father, Colonel Declan Garrett, and 5 other operators discovered evidence during Operation Anaconda in 2002. They documented everything. Created hard drive with financial records, photographs, email correspondence. And where is this evidence now? In custody of FBI as of this morning. Murmur went through gallery. In back of room, Victor Sterling sat, handcuffed, face ashen. He'd made one mistake. 6 months ago, investigative journalists had started digging into defense contractor fraud. Connected dots. Started asking uncomfortable questions. Victor sent contractors to silence her. She survived. Talked. Connected more dots. Congressional investigation expanded. Subpoenas issued. Sentinel employees started cooperating. The cage had tightened. Until last week when FBI arrived with warrant, not for the hard drive, they didn't know about it yet, but for Sentinel's current records. And in those records, they found thread. One thread that, when pulled, started unraveling everything. Reese had watched it happen, watched as Victor's empire began crumbling, not because they'd triggered Dead Man's Switch, not because they'd violated their agreement, but because the truth had its own momentum. Once it started moving, it couldn't be stopped. The hard drive had been insurance, but in the end they hadn't needed it. Reality had done the work. Senator leaned forward. Miss Garrett, you and your colleagues held on to this evidence for over 2 years after recovering it. Why, ma'am? Because we were protecting ourselves, Senator. Victor Sterling had demonstrated willingness to kill anyone who threatened him. We established mutual assured destruction, but we also waited for a moment when releasing evidence wouldn't just get us killed. And what changed? The world changed, Senator. Other journalists started asking questions. Other whistleblowers came forward. Congressional oversight began. We weren't alone anymore. The truth was moving with or without us. We just gave it push in right direction. Later, outside courthouse, Reese stood with Cole and Silas, watching reporters swarm. David Hawthorne approached, shook their hands. Thank you for not forgetting Daniel. Never, Cole said. He was my brother. Marcus Webb's widow hugged Silas. No words, just gratitude. Travis York's daughter, Emma, named after the little girl in her father's photos, stopped in front of Reese. My dad talked about your father, said Colonel Garrett was best man he knew. Your dad was pretty great too. Emma smiled, walked on. They stood there as sun set over Washington, as justice delayed, difficult, incomplete, finally began. Victor Sterling would face trial. Sentinel Global would be dissolved. Billions would be clawed back. It wasn't everything. Couldn't bring back dead. Couldn't erase pain, but it was something. What now? Cole asked. Silas shrugged. Go home. Live. Finally stop looking over shoulders. Reese thought about Lily, about teaching, about all young Marines who'd learned precision mattered, and honor mattered, and truth mattered, even when it took decades to surface. Yeah, she said. Finally live. 3 months after that, Arlington National Cemetery. 6 headstones, finally marked properly. Colonel Declan Phantom Garrett, U.S. Army Special Forces, 1948 to 2019. Some truths are worth the wait. Sergeant Major Silas Hawk Brennan, U.S. Army, 1952. Wait, Silas wasn't dead, Reese smiled. Old man had insisted they include his stone anyway. Might as well get it ready, he'd said. Plus, I want to make sure they spell my name right. The other 5 stones, Specialist Daniel Hawthorne, Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb, Corporal Travis York, Specialist Ryan Cross, Sergeant Major Silas Brennan. And beneath all of them, same inscription, Operation Anaconda, 2002. They found the truth. They protected it. They waited for justice. Some wars take decades. Reese placed flowers. Lily beside her. They won, didn't they, Mom? Eventually, some wars take decades, but yeah, they won. Cole appeared, stood beside them in silence, then spoke quietly. Phantom would say it wasn't about winning. No, Reese agreed. It was about refusing to lose, about refusing to forget, about understanding that some things are worth fighting for even when fight takes your whole life. They stood there as wind moved through trees, as sun filtered through leaves, as time moved forward the way it always did, carrying truth with it, slow, patient, inevitable, like bullet in flight, like justice delayed but not denied, like daughter who'd learned from her father that impossible was just math you hadn't learned yet. And some shots, the ones that really mattered, took years to line up. But when they landed true, dead center, every time.